The hospital corridor still smelled of antiseptic when it happened. I had just arrived with flowers and a gift wrapped in blue paper. My hands were trembling with excitement to meet my first grandchild. 6 years. 6 years of patience, of biting my tongue, of pretending not to notice. 6 years of watching them live rent-free in my house while I worked double shifts to keep the lights on. And in that moment, when I reached out to touch my grandson's tiny hand through the nursery window, she pushed me, hard. My shoulder hit the wall, and the flowers scattered across the floor like broken dreams. "Don't touch my son. You're nothing to him." Jessica's voice echoed through the corridor, sharp as a blade. But what froze my blood wasn't her words. It was my son's face. Daniel stood there, my only child, the boy I had raised alone after his father left us with nothing. He stood there and smiled. Not a nervous smile, not an apologetic smile, a smile of satisfaction, of complicity, as if they had rehearsed this moment, as if my humiliation was exactly what he had been waiting for. Can you imagine? Can you imagine sacrificing everything for your child only to watch them side with someone who treats you like garbage in your own home? What would you do if the person you loved most in the world looked at you like you were disposable? I picked up the flowers from the floor. My hands weren't trembling anymore. They were steady, eerily steady. Because in that corridor, something inside me crystallized. I remained silent. I smiled politely. I congratulated them. But I already knew that in 12 hours, they would receive a message that would change everything. And this time, I wouldn't be the one left picking up the pieces. My name is Margaret Ann Thompson. I'm 58 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was a senior paralegal at Henderson & Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the state. I spent 35 years learning exactly how the system works, how property laws function, how contracts can be ironclad when properly drafted. People always made the mistake of seeing just a quiet older woman who kept her head down and did her job. They never saw the steel underneath. I had Daniel when I was 23. His father, Robert, left us when Danny was 4, taking our savings and leaving us with a mortgage we could barely afford. I worked 2 jobs. I went to paralegal school at night. I made sure my son had everything he needed: good schools, college funds, opportunities I never had. I bought the house we live in with my own money, paid it off with my own sweat. Every brick, every window, every square foot of that 4-bedroom colonial in Maple Street belongs to me. Only to me. When Daniel met Jessica 5 years ago, I wanted to be happy for him. She was beautiful, ambitious, a marketing executive with designer clothes and expensive tastes. But from the first dinner, I saw how she looked at my house. Not like a home, like an asset, like something she deserved. "Mom, Jessica and I have been talking," Daniel said 6 months into their relationship. "Her apartment lease is ending, and rent prices are crazy right now. Would it be okay if we stayed with you for a few months? Just until we save enough for a down payment." A few months turned into 6 years. At first, I told myself it was fine. It was temporary. They were young. They needed help. Isn't that what mothers do? But the months dragged on, and I started noticing things. The way Jessica redecorated my living room without asking. The way she made comments about my outdated furniture. The way she treated my home like it was hers, and me like I was the guest. "Margaret, we're having friends over tonight," she'd announce, not ask. "You might want to eat dinner in your room. We need the dining room." And Daniel? My son said nothing. He'd shrug apologetically, but never defend me. Never tell her to stop. Never remind her whose house it actually was. I swallowed my pride. I told myself they'd leave soon, that I was being sensitive, that family means sacrifice. Then Jessica got pregnant. "We'll need the guest room for the nursery," she informed me over breakfast, as casually as if she were ordering coffee. "You can move your sewing stuff to the basement, the guest room where my mother's quilts were stored, where I kept the memories of 35 years, where I sometimes slept when I wanted to feel close to her spirit." "Jessica, that room has sentimental value," I began. "A baby is more important than your sentimental value, Margaret. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The woman living rent-free in my house for 6 years called me selfish, but I moved my things. I painted the room the color she chose. I assembled the crib that cost $800, money I could have used for my own retirement. I smiled and nodded and played the role of the grateful grandmother-to-be, because that's what I had become, hadn't I? A supporting character in my own life, a convenience, a free landlord and future babysitter. The pregnancy was difficult. Jessica complained constantly. She quit her job in the 4th month, claiming stress. Suddenly, I was the only one working, paying all the bills, buying groceries, covering utilities. Daniel had a job, theoretically, but his paycheck seemed to evaporate into Jessica's online shopping and their weekend getaways. "It's important for the baby that Jessica stays calm," Daniel explained when I gently mentioned the finances. "Stress isn't good for her condition. Surely you understand that, Mom." I understood. I understood that I was being used. But what could I do? Kick out my pregnant daughter-in-law and my own son? What kind of monster would that make me? So I worked harder, took extra cases, stayed late, came home to a house that no longer felt like mine, to a daughter-in-law who barely acknowledged my existence except to give orders, to a son who had forgotten who raised him. When Jessica went into labor, I was at work, closing a particularly complex estate case. Daniel called me, breathless with excitement. "Mom, it's happening! We're at St. Mary's. The baby's coming." I dropped everything, told my boss it was an emergency, drove through rush-hour traffic with my heart pounding, stopped at the flower shop, at the baby store. Because despite everything, this was my grandchild, my blood, my legacy. I arrived at the hospital with hope still flickering in my chest, hope that maybe, just maybe, the baby would soften them, that becoming parents would help them see how much I had sacrificed, that gratitude would finally surface. How naive I was. I found them in the recovery wing. Jessica was in bed, looking exhausted but triumphant. Daniel stood beside her, holding a blue bundle. My grandson. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of pure miracle. "He's beautiful," I whispered, stepping closer. "Congratulations, both of you." Jessica's eyes met mine, and I saw it immediately. The coldness, the calculation. She had been waiting for this moment, planning it. "The nurse will bring him to the nursery soon," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just wanted to see him to—" "No," Jessica said flatly. "I'm sorry?" "You heard me. No, you don't get to hold him. You don't get to touch him. You're not his grandmother." The words hit like a physical blow. "Jessica, I don't understand." "You understand perfectly," she hissed, her voice low enough that the nurses wouldn't hear. "You've been trying to control us for years, holding the house over our heads, making us feel like we owe you something. Well, it ends now. This is my son, mine and Daniel's. You're just the landlord." I turned to Daniel, desperate for him to intervene, to tell her she was being cruel, unreasonable. But he was looking at his phone, that same slight smile playing on his lips. "Daniel?" My voice cracked. He looked up, and his eyes were stranger's eyes. "Mom, Jessica's right. We need to establish boundaries now, for the baby's sake. You can be involved, but on our terms. When we say, how we say." That's when the nurse appeared with the rolling bassinet. "Time to take baby Thompson to the nursery for his checkup," she announced cheerfully. I stepped toward the bassinet instinctively, wanting just to see his face up close, to touch his tiny hand. Just once. Just to remember this moment. Jessica lunged from the bed. Her hands hit my shoulders, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to send me stumbling backward into the wall. The vase of flowers I'd been holding crashed to the floor. "Don't touch my son," she screamed. "You're nothing to him. Do you hear me? Nothing." The nurse gasped. Other staff members appeared. Daniel should have stopped it, should have defended me, should have done something. Instead, he smiled, and I knew, in that crystalline moment of humiliation, that this had been planned, that they had discussed this, that my son, the boy I had raised, the man I had sacrificed everything for, had agreed that his mother deserved to be shoved and screamed at in a hospital corridor. I picked up the flowers slowly, carefully. Every eye in that corridor was on me. Nurses, visitors, other patients, waiting to see if the old woman would cry, if she'd make a scene, if she'd crumble. I didn't. I smiled, apologized for the disturbance, wished them well, walked to the elevator with my head high. But inside, something had shifted. something fundamental. People always forget one thing about women of my generation. We survived things that would have broken others. We learned to be patient, strategic. We learned that the best revenge isn't hot. It's cold, calculated, and absolutely devastating. I drove home that night to my empty house, the house I had paid for, maintained, filled with love for 35 years. I walked through rooms that Jessica had redecorated without permission, past the nursery that should have been my mother's memory room, through the kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals for a son who now looked at me like I was nothing. And I made a decision. At 11:47 p.m., exactly 12 hours after that push, I sent a text message to both of them. Just one line. Simple, clear, legally airtight. 24 hours to vacate the premises. Formal eviction notice to follow. Then I opened my laptop and began making calls. To the law firm, to colleagues who owed me favors, to people who knew exactly how to make things happen quickly, efficiently, and completely legally. They thought they knew me. They thought I was weak, disposable, a convenient doormat who would accept any treatment because I loved my son too much to fight back. They were about to learn the truth. I wasn't just Margaret Thompson, the quiet paralegal who kept her head down. I was Margaret Thompson, who had spent 35 years learning every loophole, every law, every way to protect what was mine. And they had just pushed me for the last time. Daniel called at 6:32 in the morning. I was already awake, sitting at my kitchen table with coffee and a folder full of documents I had prepared the night before. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Let him sweat a little. "Mom? What the hell is this?" His voice was sharp, angry, not worried, not apologetic. Angry, as if I had done something wrong to him. "Good morning, Daniel. I trust you received my message. You can't kick us out. We just had a baby. Jessica's recovering. Have you lost your mind?" I took a slow sip of coffee. Outside my kitchen window, the sun was rising over the garden I had planted 15 years ago. The roses were blooming. Everything looked peaceful, normal, but nothing would ever be normal again. "I'm not kicking you out, Daniel. I'm evicting you. There's a legal difference. You have 24 hours to remove your belongings from my property. After that, anything remaining will be considered abandoned and disposed of accordingly." "Your property? Mom, we've lived here for 6 years. We have rights. You can't just—" "Actually, I can. You see, Daniel, you never paid rent, not a single dollar in 6 years, which means you're not tenants. You're guests, and guests can be asked to leave at any time. I've already consulted with 3 attorneys from my firm. The law is very clear on this matter." There was silence on the other end. I could hear Jessica in the background, her voice shrill with panic. "What's she saying? What's happening?" "You're bluffing," Daniel said, but his voice had lost its edge. "You wouldn't actually do this. You're just upset about yesterday. We can talk about it. Jessica was tired, emotional. She didn't mean—" "She meant every word." My voice was ice. "And so did you. When you stood there and smiled while your wife assaulted me. When you told me I could only be involved with my grandson on your terms. You meant it, Daniel. You both did. Mom, please, be reasonable. We have nowhere to go. The baby is 3 days old. You should have thought about that before you decided I was nothing to my own grandchild. 23 hours and 41 minutes remaining. I suggest you start packing." I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off. They needed to understand that this wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't a mother's tantrum that could be soothed with empty apologies and manipulation. This was the consequence of their choices, delivered with the same cold calculation they had used against me for 6 years. I spent the morning making arrangements. First, I called a locksmith and scheduled him to come at exactly 5 p.m. the following day, 1 hour after their deadline. Then I contacted a security company to install cameras around the property, not because I expected violence, but because I expected lies, and I wanted evidence of everything. My phone buzzed with text messages. I ignored them. 17 messages from Daniel, 23 from Jessica, even one from Jessica's mother, whom I had met exactly twice, calling me heartless and cruel. The irony was almost funny. At 10 a.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the window and saw them standing on my porch. My porch, I reminded myself. Daniel was holding the baby. Jessica looked like she hadn't slept. Good. I opened the door, but didn't step aside to let them in. "We need to talk," Daniel said. His eyes were red. From crying or anger, I couldn't tell. Didn't care. "The time for talking ended when your wife put her hands on me and you smiled about it. You have 21 hours left. Mom, please." Daniel's voice cracked. "Look at him. Look at your grandson. Are you really going to do this to a newborn baby?" I did look. At the tiny face peeking out from the blue blanket. At the little fist curled against Daniel's chest. My heart squeezed, just for a moment, just long enough to remember why I was doing this. "I'm not doing anything to him," I said quietly. "You are. You're the ones who chose to make me the enemy. You're the ones who decided that living rent-free for 6 years wasn't enough. That you deserved to humiliate me, to tell me I was nothing, to treat my home like your property and me like your servant. We never said—" Jessica started. "Don't." I cut her off. "Don't you dare lie to me now. I've watched you for 6 years, Jessica. I've seen how you operate, how you take and take and take, and then act shocked when someone finally says enough. Well, this is enough. This is done. Where are we supposed to go?" Jessica's voice was desperate now. The mask was slipping. "We don't have money for a deposit. We don't have—" "You had 6 years to save money. 6 years of living here for free while I worked myself to exhaustion paying your bills. What happened to all those paychecks, Daniel? All that money you made while your mother subsidized your entire life?" Daniel's face flushed. "We had expenses. The baby preparation cost $800 for a crib I assembled. $1,200 for a stroller Jessica had to have because it was Instagram-worthy. $2,000 for a nursery decoration that replaced my mother's memory room. Should I go on? I have receipts, Daniel. I have bank statements. I have proof of every single expense you claimed you couldn't afford while Jessica was posting photos of your restaurant dinners and weekend trips on social media. I had done my homework. Late last night, after sending that text message, I had gone through everything. 6 years of financial records, every utility bill I had paid alone, every grocery receipt, every time I had covered their share because they were saving for the future. A future in my house, apparently. Forever. "You were spying on us?" Jessica gasped. "I was protecting my investment, my home, my property, something I should have done 5 years ago." The baby started crying. Daniel rocked him automatically, but his eyes never left mine. "I never thought you could be this cruel," he said. "My whole life, you taught me about family, about loyalty, about taking care of the people you love. And now you're throwing us out over one mistake? One mistake?" My laugh was bitter. "Daniel, the mistake was mine. The mistake was believing that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, loved enough, you would eventually appreciate it, would eventually respect me, would eventually remember that I'm your mother, not your ATM and emotional punching bag. We appreciate everything you've done." Jessica tried again. "Spare me." I looked at her directly. "You appreciate nothing. If you did, you wouldn't have spent 6 years turning my son against me. You wouldn't have isolated me in my own home. You wouldn't have shoved me in a hospital corridor and told me I'm nothing to my own grandchild. I was in pain. I was emotional. Women say things after childbirth. Women in pain lash out at their partners, their doctors, their circumstances. They don't plan and execute the systematic humiliation of the woman who gave them a home for 6 years. You knew exactly what you were doing, Jessica. And so did he." I looked at Daniel. "You both made your choice. Now live with it." I started to close the door. "Wait!" Daniel pushed against it. "At least give us more time. 1 week. To find a place. To—" "No. Mom, I'm begging you. You should have thought about begging when you smiled at my humiliation. 20 hours and 37 minutes. After that, anything left in this house becomes my property. And if you're still here, I'll call the police for trespassing." "You'd call the cops on your own son?" Daniel's voice was incredulous. "You'd assault your own mother?" I replied. "Oh, wait, you already did. By proxy, by permission. By that smile that told me everything I needed to know about who you've become." I closed the door, locked it, watched through the window as they stood there, frozen, the baby crying louder now. Part of me, the mother part, the grandmother part, wanted to open that door, to take it all back, to hold that baby and pretend everything was fine. But I had learned something in those hospital corridors. I had learned that love without respect is just another word for slavery. That sacrifice without appreciation is just another word for being used. That being a mother didn't mean being a doormat. I walked away from the window, back to my kitchen, back to my coffee and my documents. I had work to do. By noon, they had started packing. I could hear them upstairs, the sound of drawers opening, closets being emptied. The baby's cries punctuated by Jessica's sharp commands and Daniel's tense responses. They were fighting. Good. Let them taste the reality of their choices. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Mrs. Thompson? This is Linda Martinez, Daniel's supervisor at Westfield Marketing. He called in sick today, said there was a family emergency. I wanted to check if everything was all right. Interesting. So Daniel was using his 3-day-old son as an excuse to skip work, while claiming he couldn't afford to move out because money was tight. Everything is fine, Linda. Thank you for checking. Though you might want to verify Daniel's future sick days. I believe he's used quite a few this year for non-emergencies. There was a pause. Actually, yes, he has. Nearly exhausted his PTO. I was calling to tell him that today would have to be unpaid leave. I see. Thank you for letting me know. I hung up and added this information to my mental file. Daniel had been burning through sick days while living rent-free, while I worked overtime to keep the house running. While Jessica complained about stress, the pieces were all falling into place. The complete picture of how thoroughly I had been used. At 2 p.m., Jessica came downstairs, alone. The baby must have been with Daniel. She stood in my kitchen doorway, her face a mask of controlled emotion. Can we talk? Woman to woman? We have nothing to discuss. Please, Margaret. I know I went too far yesterday. I was exhausted, in pain, hormonal. You've had children. You know how it is. I had one child. Alone. With no help, no free housing, no one to pay my bills while I recovered. So no, Jessica. You don't get to use that excuse with me. She changed tactics, softened her voice. I'm sorry. Truly. I should never have touched you. Should never have said those things. But you have to understand, I was scared. Scared of being a mother, scared of not being good enough. And I took it out on you. It was wrong. It was a good performance. Almost believable. If I hadn't seen her operate for 6 years, I might have fallen for it. If you were scared, I said carefully, you would have reached out, asked for help, leaned on your experienced mother-in-law. Instead, you pushed me away. Literally. This wasn't fear, Jessica. This was a power play. One last move to establish dominance, to make sure I knew my place in the hierarchy of your new family. That's not. It is. And it backfired. Because you forgot one crucial detail. It's my house. My name on the deed. My equity. My power. You were playing games in someone else's castle, and now you're learning what happens when the queen decides she's done being nice. Her face hardened. The mask dropped. You're going to regret this. Am I? Or are you going to regret underestimating me for 6 years? Daniel will never forgive you. You'll never see your grandson. Never be part of his life. Is that what you want? To be alone? To be the bitter old woman who chose pride over family? There it was. The threat I had been waiting for. The weapon she thought would bring me to my knees. Let me tell you something about being alone, Jessica. I've been alone in this house for 6 years, despite it being full of people. I've been alone in my own kitchen, my own living room, my own life while you and Daniel built your future on my foundation. So yes, I'll be alone. But this time, it will be honest loneliness. Not the kind where you're surrounded by people who see you as nothing more than a resource to exploit. You're insane. No, I'm finally sane. For the first time in 6 years, I'm thinking clearly. And what I see clearly is that you need me far more than I need you. You need this house. You need my financial support. You need my free childcare that you were already planning. You need me. I don't need people who treat me like garbage. Jessica's hands were shaking. We'll see about that. We'll see how you feel when you're completely alone, when you realize what you've thrown away. 18 hours and 22 minutes, I said calmly. After that, you'll be trespassing. She turned and stormed upstairs. I heard raised voices. More fighting. the baby crying again. I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret. Just a cold clarity that I had made the right decision. At 5 p.m., my lawyer called. Robert Henderson himself, senior partner at Henderson & Associates, the man I had worked for 28 years. Margaret, I've drawn up the formal eviction notice you requested, but I have to ask, are you absolutely certain about this? That's your son, your grandchild. I'm certain, Robert. Send the documents. They could contest it, claim tenant rights, squatters' rights, implied lease. They won't, because they can't. No rent was ever paid. No lease was ever signed. I have documentation of every utility bill, every expense, every instance of them living here completely free of charge. What judge would side with two able-bodied adults who exploited an elderly woman's generosity for 6 years? Elderly. I had used that word deliberately. Let them try to paint me as the villain. Let them try to explain to a court why they thought it was acceptable to live rent-free off a 58-year-old woman working 2 jobs. All right, Robert sighed. The documents will be ready by 8 p.m. I'll have them delivered by courier. Margaret, I'm sorry you're going through this. Don't be sorry, Robert. Be thorough. I want this airtight. I want them to have absolutely no legal ground to stand on. Consider it done. I hung up and allowed myself a small smile. Jessica thought I was just a hurt mother acting on emotion. She had no idea that I had spent the last 12 hours building a legal fortress around my decision. That every step I had taken was calculated, documented, defensible. They thought they were playing chess with a checkers player. They were about to learn otherwise. As darkness fell, I watched them load their car. Suitcases, baby equipment, the expensive stroller, the designer diaper bag, all the things they had bought with money they should have been saving for their own place. Daniel came to my door one last time. Alone. Mom, please. I'm asking you. I'm begging you. Don't do this. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. When had he become this person? When had he learned to be cruel? To be ungrateful? Or had I simply refused to see it until now? I gave you everything, I said quietly. My time, my money, my home, my love. All I asked in return was basic respect, and you couldn't even give me that. So no, Daniel, I won't change my mind. You made your choice when you smiled at my humiliation. Now face the consequences. I didn't smile. I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. You knew exactly what to do. You could have defended me, stopped her, stood up for your mother. You chose not to. That's not nervousness, Daniel. That's betrayal. Tears ran down his face. I'm your son. Doesn't that mean anything anymore? You're my son. That will always mean something. But it doesn't mean you get to treat me like nothing. It doesn't mean you get a free pass to exploit me forever. It means I love you enough to teach you this lesson before you destroy yourself completely. What lesson? That love is conditional? That family turns on each other over one mistake? That respect isn't optional? That gratitude isn't weakness? That actions have consequences? These are lessons I should have taught you years ago. I failed you by enabling you. I won't make that mistake again. He stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the woman who would accept anything, endure anything, forgive anything, was finally gone. Goodbye, Daniel. 16 hours remaining. I closed the door on my sobbing son and walked back to my kitchen. The house was quiet, empty, except for me. Soon it would be truly empty, and for the first time in 6 years, I would be free. The courier arrived at exactly 8 p.m. with the formal eviction documents. I signed for them and immediately photographed every page, uploading them to a secure cloud storage. In my line of work, I had learned that documentation was everything. Paper could be destroyed, files could be lost, but the cloud was forever. I slid the official notice under the guest room door, their room for now, heard the rustle as someone picked it up, then silence, a long, heavy silence that felt like the calm before a storm. At 9:37 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the security camera I had installed that afternoon, one of many precautions I had taken. Standing on my porch were Jessica's parents, Martin and Gloria Hartwell. I had met them exactly twice in 6 years. Once at Daniel and Jessica's engagement party, once at their small courthouse wedding that Jessica had planned in 3 weeks because Formal weddings are outdated and wasteful. I opened the door but kept the security chain latched. Mrs. Thompson, Martin said, his voice dripping with barely controlled anger. We need to discuss this situation. There's nothing to discuss. Your daughter and my son have 16 hours to vacate my property. You can't be serious, Gloria cut in, her voice shrill. There's a newborn baby involved. What kind of person throws out a 3-day-old infant? The kind of person who was assaulted by your daughter and betrayed by her own son. The kind of person who spent 6 years providing free housing while being treated like hired help. Should I continue? Jessica told us what happened, Martin said. She was exhausted, in pain, dealing with postpartum emotions. She said something she didn't mean. Surely you, as a mother yourself, can understand that. I understand perfectly. I understand that your daughter has been manipulating my son for years, that she's turned my home into her personal kingdom and me into a servant, that she planned that hospital confrontation to establish dominance, and that you're here now because she finally pushed someone who pushes back. Gloria's face flushed red. How dare you speak about my daughter that way? Jessica is a wonderful person. She's caring, loving. She's a parasite, I said calmly. A beautiful, charming parasite who found a host in my lonely son and a free meal ticket in me. And you enabled her. How much rent does she pay you, Gloria? When she lived at home before Daniel? Let me guess. Nothing? Because your little princess deserved to save her money for her future? The flash of guilt in Gloria's eyes told me I had hit the mark. That's different, Martin blustered. We're her parents. It's our job to help our children. It was my job too, for 18 years. After that, it becomes enabling. And I'm done enabling. You're being unreasonable, Gloria insisted. We came here to find a compromise, to talk like adults. Surely we can work something out. Maybe Jessica overreacted, but so are you. Can't you see that? I almost laughed. The audacity, the sheer breathtaking audacity of these people. Let me tell you what I see, I said, my voice ice. I see 2 parents who raised a daughter to believe the world owes her everything, who taught her that charm and beauty are substitutes for character and gratitude, who are now panicking because their daughter's free ride just ended and suddenly she's your problem again. That's what I see. That's not, Martin started. It is. You don't care about Jessica's well-being. You care about your convenience. Because if she moves back with you, you'll have to deal with a newborn crying at night. You'll have to financially support her again. You'll have to parent your adult daughter. So you came here hoping to guilt me into continuing to subsidize her life. Well, I won't. Not anymore. We could pay rent, Gloria said suddenly. We could help them pay you. Would that change your mind? How much rent could you pay, Gloria? Fair market value for a 4-bedroom house in this neighborhood is $2,800 a month. 6 years of back rent would be, let me calculate, $200,000, $800, plus utilities, plus the increased insurance costs, plus wear and tear. Shall we call it $250,000? Their faces went white. I didn't think so, I continued. You can't afford it. Just like Jessica and Daniel can't afford it. Which is exactly why they've been living here for free. Exactly why they planned to stay forever. Exactly why Jessica needed to establish that I was nothing to my own grandchild. Because she needed to make sure I knew my place as the free landlord who should be grateful for their presence. You're twisting everything, Jessica's voice came from behind her parents. She had appeared, holding the baby, with Daniel standing grimly beside her. A united front, the whole family against me. Am I? Then explain to me, Jessica, why in 6 years you never once offered to pay rent, never offered to help with utilities, never even consistently bought groceries or cleaned the house you lived in. Explain why you redecorated my living room without asking permission. Why you took over my mother's memory room for your nursery without a second thought. Why you treated me like a servant in my own home. Explain that. We were family, she shot back. Family helps each other. Family doesn't charge rent or keep score or... Family also doesn't assault family members in hospital corridors. Family doesn't tell their mother-in-law she's nothing to her own grandchild. Family doesn't smile when their mother is being humiliated. You want to play the family card? Then you should have acted like family. The baby started crying. Daniel took him from Jessica, rocking him automatically. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be. The one who would curl up in my lap when he had nightmares. The one who made me breakfast in bed on Mother's Day with burned toast and too sweet coffee. The one who promised he'd take care of me when I got old. That boy was gone, replaced by this man who chose his wife's cruelty over his mother's dignity. "Mom," Daniel said quietly, his voice barely audible over the baby's cries. "I know we messed up. I know we took advantage. But please, look at him. He's your grandson, your blood. Don't you want to know him? To be part of his life?" It was the right card to play. Almost, because he was betting that my love for a baby I had held for exactly 0 seconds would outweigh 6 years of disrespect and a lifetime of betrayal. "I do want to know him," I said, surprising them all. "I want to know him as a person who learns that actions have consequences. That respect is earned, not demanded. That family means mutual love and support, not one-sided exploitation. I want him to grow up knowing that his grandmother had enough self-respect to say no when she was being used. That's the legacy I want to leave him." "That's insane!" Jessica exploded. "You're choosing pride over your own grandchild. I'm choosing self-respect over being a doormat. There's a difference. We could start over," Daniel tried. "Move out like you want. Find our own place. Rebuild the relationship properly. Would that work? Could we try that?" "And who would pay for this fresh start?" I asked. "You have no savings. Jessica has no job. You've burned through every dollar you made for 6 years. Where exactly would you live? How would you afford it?" Silence. Because they had no answer. Because their entire plan had been to stay in my house forever, raise their children in my space, live off my labor until I died, and they could inherit the property. "We'll figure it out," Daniel said weakly. "You have 15 hours to do so. After that, the locks change." "You're really going to do this," Jessica said, and for the first time, I heard genuine fear in her voice. "You're really going to put us on the street. I'm going to enforce my property rights. Where you go afterward is your choice, your responsibility, not mine, not anymore." Martin stepped forward. "Mrs. Thompson, please, be reasonable. They can stay with us temporarily, but our condo is small. A 2-bedroom. We have no room for all their things, for a nursery setup. Just give them a month. 1 month to find a place to—" "No. 2 weeks then. Surely." "No. The answer is no. No more extensions. No more second chances. No more negotiations. They had 6 years to plan for this. 6 years to save. 6 years to prepare for independence. They chose to believe the free ride would last forever. They chose wrong. You'll regret this," Jessica hissed. "When you're old and alone and dying in some nursing home with no one to visit you, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember choosing your pride over your family." "Perhaps," I said calmly. "But I'll also remember standing up for myself. I'll remember refusing to be used anymore. I'll remember that I had enough self-respect to say, enough is enough. And you know what? I'll sleep just fine with that." I closed the door, locked it, watched through the security camera as they stood there, stunned, the baby still crying, their unified front crumbling into whispered arguments and recriminations. Let them fight. Let them panic. Let them taste the reality they had been avoiding for 6 years. Inside my house, my quiet, peaceful house, I made myself tea and sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had eaten alone for 6 years while they occupied the dining room, the same table where I had paid bills they should have helped with, the same table where I had cried silent tears of frustration and loneliness. Tomorrow, it would just be my table, in my kitchen, in my house, mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Mom, please, I'm begging you. We have nowhere to go." I blocked the number. Another text from Jessica. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed your own family." I blocked that number too. Then another from Gloria. "We're filing a complaint with social services. What you're doing is elder abuse in reverse. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." I smiled at that one. Let them try. Let them explain to social services how 2 able-bodied adults living rent-free for 6 years constitutes them being abused by the homeowner. I had documentation, bank statements, utility bills, text messages, 6 years of evidence that I was the victim, not them. I saved the text, added it to my evidence file, and blocked the number. The house settled into silence. Real silence. Not the tense, walking on eggshells silence of the past 6 years, but genuine peace. I walked through each room, reclaiming them in my mind. The living room that Jessica had redecorated, I would restore it to its original warmth. The guest room that had become a nursery, I would bring back my mother's quilts, her memory, her love. The kitchen where I had been made to feel like an intruder. I would cook meals for one and enjoy every bite. This house would be mine again, truly mine. At midnight, I heard them leave. The sound of their car doors slamming, the engine starting, driving away into the night with whatever they could pack in one day. I wondered where they were going. Jessica's parents' cramped condo? A cheap motel? Someone's couch? Then I stopped wondering, because it wasn't my problem anymore. I had spent 6 years making their problems mine. 6 years sacrificing my comfort for their convenience. 6 years being the solution to every crisis they created. Not anymore. I climbed into my bed, the one piece of furniture in this house that had remained mine alone, and closed my eyes. For the first time in 6 years, I fell asleep without anxiety, without resentment, without the weight of being used crushing my chest. I fell asleep free. And when I woke up the next morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do next, because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. They thought I was just a hurt mother cutting them off. They had no idea that I was about to ensure they could never do this to anyone else again. I woke at 6 a.m. to an empty house, truly empty. They had left sometime in the night, and the silence was profound. I made coffee and walked through the rooms, assessing the damage of their departure. They had taken everything. The expensive nursery furniture I had helped assemble. The designer items Jessica had insisted on. Even some things that weren't theirs. My good towels. The coffee maker I had bought just last month. Several of my kitchen appliances. A final act of petty theft to match their 6 years of grand larceny. I photographed everything. Every missing item. Every mark on the walls where they had hung pictures without asking. Every stain on the carpet from their carelessness. Documentation. Always documentation. Then I called the locksmith. "Mrs. Thompson, I can be there by 9 a.m. as scheduled." "Perfect. And I'm adding to the order. I want every lock in the house changed. Front door, back door, garage, even the shed. And I want a new security system installed. The complete package, cameras, motion sensors, the works. That's going to run you about $3,000, ma'am. Money well spent. How soon can you start?" "I'll bring my team. We can have everything done by this afternoon." After I hung up, I made my second call, to Robert Henderson. "Margaret, it's 6:15 in the morning. I know, Robert. I need you to prepare additional documents. I want a restraining order filed against both Daniel and Jessica. I want it to specify that they cannot come within 500 feet of my property." There was a pause. "Margaret, that's quite extreme. A restraining order requires proof of harassment or threat. Do you have that?" "I will by the end of the day. They've already sent threatening texts. They've had family members come to my door to intimidate me, and I guarantee you, once they realize I'm serious, they'll be back. I want legal protection in place before that happens. I'll need copies of those texts. Any other evidence of harassment. You'll have everything by noon. I'm also going to need you to prepare a formal accounting of all expenses I incurred during their 6-year residency. Every utility bill, every grocery receipt, every home repair. I want a complete financial picture of exactly how much their free living cost me. You're building a case. I'm building a fortress, Robert, because they're not going to accept this. They're going to fight back. And when they do, I want to be so thoroughly protected that they can't touch me. What are you planning?" "I'm planning to make sure everyone knows exactly who they are, what they did. I'm planning to ensure that their pattern of exploitation is so well documented that they can never manipulate anyone else the way they manipulated me." Robert was quiet for a long moment. "You've changed, Margaret. In all the years I've known you, I've never heard you like this." "I haven't changed, Robert. I've just stopped pretending. This is who I've always been underneath. The woman who survived single motherhood, put herself through school, built a career in a male-dominated field, paid off a house on a paralegal's salary. I just forgot for a while. Let myself become soft, convenient, used. I'm done forgetting. All right, I'll have the documents ready. But Margaret, be careful. When you back people into a corner, They can become dangerous. They should have thought about that before they backed me into one. I spent the morning methodically going through the house, cataloging everything. I found more evidence of their entitlement in every room. In the master bedroom they had occupied, my master bedroom, which I had given them while I slept in the smaller guest room, I found stacks of shopping bags, designer clothes, expensive shoes, electronics, thousands of dollars worth of purchases hidden in the closet like guilty secrets. No wonder they had no savings. Every dollar had gone to maintaining Jessica's lifestyle while I paid for their basic living expenses. I photographed everything, created spreadsheets, built timelines. 6 years of financial abuse laid out in irrefutable data. At 9 a.m., the locksmith arrived with his team. By 9:30, they were changing every lock in the house. I watched them work, feeling something shift inside me with each new key, each new deadbolt. This was my fortress now, my sanctuary, protected. At 10:15, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Mrs. Thompson, this is Cheryl Brennan from Child Protective Services. We've received a complaint regarding your treatment of your son and his family. I'll need to schedule a home visit to discuss the allegations. Please call me back at this number. I smiled. So Jessica had followed through on her threat. She had called CPS, probably claiming I had endangered the baby by evicting them. Predictable. I called Robert immediately. They've escalated. CPS just left a message. What are they claiming? I don't know yet, but I can guess. Probably that I endangered a newborn by evicting them, that I'm mentally unstable. Whatever story makes them look like victims. This could be serious, Margaret. CPS investigations can be nothing if we're prepared. I want you to prepare a complete package for CPS. Financial records showing I supported them for 6 years. Medical records showing the assault at the hospital. Yes, I went to the ER afterward and documented the shoulder injury. Witness statements from the hospital staff who saw Jessica push me. Text messages showing their threats and harassment. I want CPS to see exactly who the real victim is here. You went to the ER. I did. Immediately after leaving the hospital, told them I was pushed and injured, got x-rays, documentation, everything. I knew Jessica would try something like this. I wanted evidence. Robert laughed, a sound of genuine admiration. You've been planning this since the hospital. I've been planning this since the moment my son smiled at my humiliation. I just needed to decide how far I was willing to go. Now I know, as far as necessary. I called CPS back and scheduled the home visit for 2 days later. That would give me time to prepare, to organize my evidence into an undeniable narrative, to show them not just what happened, but the pattern of abuse that led to it. At 11 a.m., there was a knock on my door. I checked the security camera, a woman I didn't recognize, professionally dressed, carrying a briefcase. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. Can I help you? Mrs. Thompson? I'm Amanda Price, family attorney. Jessica and Daniel Hartwell have retained my services. I'd like to discuss a possible resolution to this situation. There's nothing to resolve. They were asked to leave my property. They left. The matter is concluded. Not quite. My clients are prepared to file a lawsuit for unlawful eviction, emotional distress, and grandparent alienation. We believe we have a strong case. Grandparent alienation? I almost laughed. I'm the grandparent being alienated. By them. I was told I was nothing to my own grandchild, pushed in a hospital corridor, and systematically excluded from my own family. If anyone has a case for alienation, it's me. Amanda's professional smile never wavered. That's one interpretation. But consider how it looks from the outside. A grandmother so angry about a momentary conflict that she evicts her son, daughter-in-law, and 3-day-old grandchild. Judges tend to be sympathetic to young families, Mrs. Thompson, especially when there's a newborn involved. And judges tend to be unsympathetic to adults who live rent-free for 6 years then assault their benefactor. I have documentation, Ms. Price. Bank statements, medical records, witness statements, text messages, 6 years of evidence showing systematic financial exploitation. What do you have? Jessica's tears and a good story? The smile faltered slightly. My clients are willing to drop all legal action if you agree to certain terms. They would move back in temporarily, say 6 months, to give them time to save for their own place. They would pay nominal rent, help with expenses. In exchange, you drop the eviction and allow them to be part of your life. Nominal rent for 6 more months of abuse? How generous? The answer is no. Mrs. Thompson, think carefully. If this goes to court, your relationship with your son will be destroyed. You'll never meet your grandson, never be part of his life. Is your pride really worth that? It's not pride, Ms. Price. It's self-respect. Something your clients mistake for the same thing. Tell them the answer is no. Tell them if they want a court battle, I'm ready. Tell them I have resources they haven't begun to imagine and a determination born of 6 years of being used. Tell them they picked the wrong woman to exploit. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was waiting 6 years to fix it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a locksmith waiting. I closed the door on her shocked face. Let them hire lawyers. Let them file lawsuits. Let them try every manipulation, every threat, every tactic they could think of. I was ready. More than ready. I was armed with the truth, fortified with evidence, and absolutely done being anyone's victim. The locksmith finished at 2 p.m. I tested every new lock, memorized every new key. Then I walked through my house, my reclaimed house, and felt something I hadn't felt in 6 years. Safe. At 3 p.m., I received an email from Daniel. The subject line read, "Please read this. I'm begging you." I almost deleted it without reading. Almost. But curiosity won. "Mom, I don't know what to say anymore. You've blocked my number, hired lawyers, changed the locks. You've made it clear you don't want us in your life. But I need you to know something. That smile you keep talking about, the one at the hospital, I wasn't smiling because I was happy to see you hurt. I was smiling because I was nervous, because I didn't know how to handle Jessica being so upset, because I was trying to keep the peace. It was a stupid, nervous reaction, not malice, never malice. I love you, Mom. I always have. Jessica and I made mistakes. We took advantage of your generosity. We got comfortable and forgot to be grateful. But we never meant to hurt you. We never meant for it to go this far. The baby is beautiful, Mom. He has your eyes. Did you know that? When I look at him, I see you. I see the woman who raised me, who sacrificed everything for me, who taught me about love and family. And it breaks my heart that you'll never know him, that he'll grow up without knowing his grandmother. Is this really what you want? A war? Lawyers and restraining orders and hateful words that can never be taken back? Or can we find a way back? I'm not asking to move back in. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking for a chance to make things right, to show you we can change, to let you be part of your grandson's life. Please, Mom, don't let it end like this. Love, Daniel. It was a good letter, probably written with Amanda Price's help, the perfect blend of apology, justification, and emotional manipulation. The nervous smile, the baby has your eyes, the heartfelt plea for family. 6 years ago, it would have worked. 6 months ago, it would have worked. Even 6 weeks ago, I might have wavered, but not anymore. Because I had learned something crucial. The most dangerous manipulation is the one wrapped in love. I deleted the email without responding. Then I called Robert Henderson one more time. I need you to do something else for me. I want you to prepare a comprehensive document, call it a declaration or affidavit, outlining everything, every detail of the last 6 years, every expense, every instance of disrespect, every broken promise, the hospital incident, the eviction, everything. I want it notarized, filed, and made part of the public record. Margaret, that's essentially declaring war. Once that's public, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment my son smiled at my humiliation. I'm just making it official. What's your endgame here? My endgame is the truth. I want everyone to know what they did. I want it documented so thoroughly that they can never rewrite the story, can never play the victim, can never do this to anyone else. I want the truth to be undeniable, unavoidable, and permanent. You're not just protecting yourself, you're destroying them. I'm exposing them. There's a difference. If the truth destroys them, that's their doing, not mine. Robert sighed. I'll prepare the documents. But Margaret, when this is done, when the dust settles, you're going to be alone. Are you prepared for that? I've been alone for 6 years, Robert. The only difference is now it will be honest. I hung up and looked around my empty house, my fortress, my sanctuary, mine. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. But tonight, For the first time in 6 years, I would sleep in my own master bedroom, in my own house, on my own terms, and I would sleep like a baby. The CPS investigator arrived exactly on time. Cheryl Brennan was a tired-looking woman in her 40s, carrying a worn notebook and an expression that said she'd seen every family drama imaginable. "Mrs. Thompson, thank you for meeting with me. I need to ask you some questions about the complaint we received." "Of course, but first, let me show you something." I led her to my dining room table, where I had laid out 6 years of documentation, bank statements, receipts, medical records from the hospital, photos of the missing items, text messages, emails, a complete timeline of exploitation. "This is everything," I said simply. 6 years of supporting 2 able-bodied adults who contributed nothing, who took everything, who assaulted me when I finally said enough. Cheryl's eyes widened as she began reviewing the materials. She spent 40 minutes going through everything, taking notes, asking careful questions. "And they're claiming you endangered the child by evicting them?" she finally said. "They're claiming whatever makes them look like victims. But the facts are simple. I was assaulted, I documented it, and I exercised my legal right to remove non-paying occupants from my property. At no point was the child in danger. At every point, I was the one being abused." Cheryl closed her notebook. "Mrs. Thompson, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen a lot of false complaints filed out of spite or revenge. This is clearly one of them. I'll be closing this case with no findings. I'm sorry you were put through this. Don't be sorry. Be thorough in your report. I want it documented that their claims were baseless, that they filed a false complaint, that they tried to weaponize the system against me. It will be in my report." After Cheryl left, I felt something loosen in my chest. One threat neutralized, but I knew there would be more. I was right. That afternoon, I received a call from my bank. Someone had attempted to access my accounts using my information. The fraud department had caught it, but it was clear. Daniel and Jessica were desperate enough to try identity theft. I filed a police report immediately, added it to my growing file of evidence. Then I did something I had been avoiding. I called my sister, Helen, who lived 3 states away. We hadn't spoken in months, but I knew she needed to hear this from me before Daniel or Jessica got to her with their version. "Margaret, is everything okay?" "No, Helen, it's not. I need to tell you something." I explained everything. The 6 years, the hospital, the eviction, the legal battle brewing. Helen listened in silence. "My God, Margaret, why didn't you tell me this was happening?" "Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I let it go on so long. Ashamed that my own son could treat me this way. Ashamed that I was too weak to stop it." "You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know. And I'm proud of you for finally standing up for yourself." Those words, simple, direct, supportive, nearly broke me, because they were what I had needed to hear for 6 years, what Daniel should have said, what family should mean. "Thank you," I whispered. "What do you need from me?" "Just the truth. If they contact you, if they try to turn you against me, just remember what I told you today. Remember the facts. Always. And Margaret, you're not alone in this. Not anymore." After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen and let myself cry. Not from sadness or regret, but from relief, because I had finally told someone, finally let the truth out into the light. And the truth I was learning was the most powerful weapon of all. That evening, I received one final message from Daniel's phone, but I suspected Jessica wrote it. "You've won, Margaret. You've destroyed your family, isolated yourself, and guaranteed you'll die alone. I hope your precious house keeps you warm at night. I hope your pride fills the empty rooms, because that's all you'll have left. Congratulations." I read it once, smiled, and typed my reply. "I haven't destroyed anything. I've simply stopped accepting destruction as love. The difference is everything." Then I blocked the number permanently. My house was quiet, empty, mine. And for the first time in 6 years, that was exactly enough. 3 days after the eviction, I sat in Robert Henderson's office with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The CPS case was closed. The locks were changed. The immediate crisis had passed. Now it was time to ensure it stayed that way. "I want to file a civil suit," I told Robert, "against both of them, for unjust enrichment, conversion of property, and the assault at the hospital. Robert leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. Margaret, you could win. Probably will win. But at what cost? Legal fees alone could run you $30,000 or more, and it will keep you tied to them for months, maybe years. I don't care about the money, I care about the precedent. I want it on the record that what they did was wrong. Legally, morally, unequivocally wrong. You're not just seeking justice, you're seeking vindication. I'm seeking both, and I want to send a message to anyone else who might think they can exploit someone's kindness and walk away without consequences. Robert pulled out a legal pad and began taking notes. All right, let's build the case. The unjust enrichment claim is solid. 6 years of free housing with clear market value. The conversion claim covers the items they took when they left. The assault is documented with medical records and witness statements. But there's something else we should consider. What? A restraining order. Not just against them coming to your property, but against all forms of harassment. You've documented their threatening messages, the attempted identity theft, the false CPS report. That's a pattern of harassment that justifies protection. How long would the restraining order last? We can request a year, renewable if the harassment continues. It would legally prohibit them from contacting you directly or through third parties, from coming within 500 feet of your home or workplace, from posting about you on social media. Complete legal separation. I thought about Daniel's email, Jessica's threatening texts, the lawyer they had sent to my door. All attempts to maintain control, to force me back into compliance. Do it. File for everything. I want maximum legal protection. You understand this will enrage them further. They'll see it as an attack. They saw my request for basic respect as an attack. They saw my refusal to be assaulted without consequence as an attack. Everything I do to protect myself will be seen as an attack because they believe they're entitled to abuse me. So, let them be enraged. Behind legal walls, they can't cross. Robert nodded slowly. I'll have the papers drawn up by tomorrow. But Margaret, I need to ask you something. What's your ultimate goal here? What does victory look like? I considered the question carefully. Victory looks like peace, like knowing they can never do this to me again, like setting a boundary so clear, so legally reinforced that they have no choice but to respect it. And if they won't respect it voluntarily, then the law will enforce it for them. And your grandson? Your relationship with Daniel? They made it clear I'm nothing to that child. I'm simply accepting their decision and protecting myself accordingly. If they want a relationship someday, it will be on terms of mutual respect, not emotional blackmail, not manipulation, not the dysfunctional dynamic they created. That's a hard line to hold. Softer lines didn't work for 6 years. Hard is what's required now. After the meeting, I drove to my neighborhood coffee shop, a place I used to frequent before Jessica decided it was beneath her standards and discouraged me from going. I ordered my favorite latte, found a quiet corner, and opened my laptop. I had one more piece of my counteroffensive to put in place. For years, Jessica had maintained a carefully curated social media presence, perfect photos of their life, artfully arranged shots of the house, my house, presented as if it were theirs, posts about their struggles and sacrifices, fishing for sympathy and admiration. She had built a narrative of themselves as a young family working hard, making it on their own. It was all a lie, and I was done letting lies stand unchallenged. I created a new social media account. Not to engage with them directly, the restraining order would prevent that soon enough, but to tell my story, to put the truth out there for anyone who cared to know it. I wrote carefully, factually, without emotion or exaggeration. After 6 years of providing free housing to my son and his wife, after being assaulted by my daughter-in-law in a hospital corridor while meeting my newborn grandson, after being told I was nothing to my own family, I made the difficult decision to evict them from my home. This is not a story about a heartless grandmother. This is a story about financial abuse, exploitation, and the moment I finally chose self-respect over being used. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but for truth, and to let others know that saying enough is not cruelty, it's survival. I didn't post photos, didn't name names, didn't need to. The truth was powerful enough on its own. Within hours, I had messages, other mothers who had gone through similar situations, people who had been exploited by family members, supporters who understood that kindness without boundaries becomes slavery. And as I expected, I had attacks. Anonymous accounts, probably Jessica's friends, maybe Jessica herself, calling me selfish, heartless, cruel, accusing me of choosing pride over family. I didn't engage, didn't defend, didn't explain beyond what I had already said. The truth didn't need defending. That evening, my phone rang. An unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Amanda Price again. My clients have seen your social media post. They consider it defamatory and are prepared to add it to their lawsuit. I strongly advise you to take it down immediately and issue a public apology. Otherwise, we'll be seeking damages for reputational harm, emotional distress, and—" I deleted the voicemail before she finished. Let them sue for truth. Let them try to claim that facts were defamatory. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Just heard from opposing counsel. They're threatening to sue over your social media post. Don't worry. Truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Keep documenting everything." I smiled and replied, "Already am." The next morning, I woke to find that my post had been shared hundreds of times. People were commenting with their own stories of family exploitation, of being used by adult children, of finally finding the courage to say no. I had accidentally started a movement. A small one, perhaps, but real. A community of people who understood that love without respect is just another word for abuse. That family doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is establish boundaries. Jessica tried to counter with her own post, a tearful video about being thrown out with a newborn, about a cruel mother-in-law who chose material possessions over family. She was good, compelling. Her tears looked real, but the comments surprised her. Because mixed in with the sympathy were questions. Why didn't you pay rent for 6 years? Why did you assault her in the hospital? Where did all your money go if you weren't paying bills? People weren't as easily manipulated as she thought. The truth had a way of resonating even when wrapped in lies. By that afternoon, Jessica had deleted her post. Too many uncomfortable questions. Too much truth seeping through her carefully constructed narrative. I, however, left mine up. Because it was factual, documented, defensible. That evening, Robert called with news. The restraining order has been approved. Temporary order is in effect immediately. Hearing for permanent order is scheduled for next week. They've been served. They're legally prohibited from contacting you or coming near your property. How did they react? According to the process server, Jessica screamed at him for 10 minutes. Daniel just looked defeated, signed the papers without a word. Something in my chest tightened at that image. My son, defeated, broken by consequences of his own choices. The mother in me wanted to fix it, to make it better, to rescue him one more time. But the woman I had become knew better, knew that rescuing him now would only teach him that actions don't have consequences, that mother will always save him, that he never has to grow up, take responsibility, or change. Good, I said, and meant it. What's next? We wait. They have 30 days to respond to the civil suit. The restraining order hearing is in 7 days, and we prepare for whatever they try next. Because, Margaret, they will try something. People like this always do. Let them try. I'm ready. And I was. Completely, totally ready. Because I had spent 6 years being unprepared for their manipulation. 6 years being caught off guard by their selfishness. 6 years reacting instead of anticipating. Not anymore. Now I was 3 steps ahead. Building legal walls, documenting everything, creating a fortress of truth that they couldn't breach. I hung up and walked through my house, room by room. I had started redecorating, slowly, carefully, making each space mine again. The living room was first. I had brought back the furniture Jessica had banished to the garage. The photos of my mother that she had deemed depressing, the warm colors and comfortable style that reflected who I was, not who Jessica wanted me to be. Next would be the guest room. I would clear out every trace of the nursery and restore it to a space of memory and peace. My house was becoming my home again, and I was becoming myself again. That night, I received one final message. Not from Daniel or Jessica, but from Helen. Just wanted you to know, I'm proud of you. What you're doing takes courage, real courage. Not the kind that fights battles for others, but the kind that fights for yourself. Keep going, sister. You're doing the right thing. I read it 3 times. Let the words sink in. Let myself believe them. Because for the first time in 6 years, I was doing the right thing. Not the easy thing. Not the expected thing. Not the thing that would make everyone happy. The right thing. And that, I was learning, was worth any price. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning. I spent the week before it preparing with the thoroughness of someone who had spent 35 years in law firms. Every document organized, every timeline verified, every piece of evidence cross-referenced and indexed. Robert had warned me they would bring their own evidence, their own story, their own version of events designed to paint me as the villain. I was ready. Wednesday night, I received an unexpected visitor. I saw her through the security camera, a young woman, early 20s, holding a baby. Not Jessica, someone I didn't recognize. I cracked the door open, chain still latched. Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Rachel. I'm Jessica's younger sister. I had heard Jessica mention a sister once or twice, always dismissively, always with an edge of contempt. What do you want, Rachel? I wanted to warn you. Jessica is planning something for tomorrow's hearing. She's been coaching people, friends, family, to testify that you were abusive, neglectful, that you made their lives miserable. Why are you telling me this? Rachel shifted the baby in her arms. Because I've watched Jessica do this my whole life. Use people, manipulate them, throw them away when she's done. I watched her do it to our parents, to friends, to everyone who tries to help her. And I'm tired of it. You're risking a lot coming here. I know. If Jessica finds out, she'll turn the whole family against me. But I can't stay silent anymore. What she did to you, living in your house for free, treating you like that, then playing the victim, it's exactly who she is. And someone needs to stop her. I studied Rachel carefully. She looked genuinely distressed, but I had learned not to trust appearances. Do you have proof of what you're saying? About the coach testimony? Rachel pulled out her phone. I recorded our last family dinner. Jessica was telling everyone exactly what to say tomorrow, how to make you look bad. I thought you should hear it. She played the recording, Jessica's voice, clear and calculating, instructing people on how to lie, what details to emphasize, how to cry on cue. It was perfect, exactly what I needed. Can I have a copy of that recording? That's why I'm here. Rachel sent it to my phone. Mrs. Thompson, I know Jessica is my sister, but what she's doing is wrong. Someone has to stand up to her. Thank you, Rachel. This takes courage. So does what you're doing. Good luck tomorrow. After she left, I immediately forwarded the recording to Robert with a simple message. Game changer. He called within minutes. Where did you get this? Jessica's sister. Apparently even family has limits on tolerating her behavior. This is gold, Margaret. If they bring perjured testimony tomorrow, we can destroy their credibility immediately. But we need to be strategic about when we use it. I trust your judgment. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we end this. But I didn't rest. I listened to that recording over and over, heard Jessica's cold calculation as she instructed people to lie, to manufacture abuse that never happened, to destroy me for daring to stand up for myself. And I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, just a crystalline certainty that I was doing exactly the right thing. The next morning, I dressed carefully, professional but not intimidating, dignified but not cold. I wanted the judge to see exactly who I was, a woman who had been pushed too far and finally pushed back. The courthouse was exactly as I remembered from my years working there. Robert met me outside the courtroom. They're here. Daniel, Jessica, their lawyer, and about 6 other people they brought to testify. Let them. We're ready. We entered the courtroom. I saw Daniel immediately. He looked thin, tired. When our eyes met, his filled with something that looked like regret, or maybe just fear of consequences. Jessica sat beside him, holding the baby. Calculated, of course. Bring the infant to court to gain sympathy. To remind everyone that she was a new mother being persecuted by a heartless grandmother. The judge entered. The hearing began, and the war I had been preparing for finally started in earnest. Amanda Price stood first, painting a picture of a controlling, vindictive woman who threw out a young family over a minor disagreement. She called Jessica's friend Sarah to the stand. "Tell the court about Mrs. Thompson's behavior toward Jessica and Daniel," Amanda prompted. Sarah dabbed her eyes dramatically. Margaret was always criticizing Jessica, making her feel unwelcome in her own home, creating a hostile environment. Jessica tried so hard to please her, but nothing was ever good enough. I watched Robert make notes, waited. Next came Jessica's mother, Gloria. More tears, more tales of my supposed cruelty, how I had isolated them, made unreasonable demands, threatened them constantly. Daniel took the stand. His testimony was quieter, sadder. My mother changed. She became bitter, resentful. She couldn't accept that I had my own family now, that Jessica came first. Every word was carefully rehearsed, exactly as Rachel's recording had predicted. Finally, Amanda rested. "Your Honor, this pattern of abuse culminated in Mrs. Thompson evicting a 3-day-old infant. We ask that the restraining order be denied and that the court consider sanctions against Mrs. Thompson for filing a frivolous claim." The judge turned to Robert. "Counselor?" Robert stood slowly, deliberately. "Your Honor, I have just one piece of evidence to present. With the court's permission." He played Rachel's recording. The courtroom fell silent as Jessica's voice filled the space. Her instructions on how to lie, what to say, how to destroy me with fabricated testimony. When it ended, the judge's face was stone. "Ms. Price, did your clients coach witnesses to commit perjury in my courtroom?" Amanda's face went white. "Your Honor, I had no knowledge. I'm not asking you. I'm asking them." The judge looked directly at Jessica and Daniel. "Did you instruct people to lie under oath?" Jessica's mask cracked. "That recording is illegal. It was obtained without consent. It can't be used." "This is civil court, Ms. Hartwell, not criminal. The rules are different." "And you haven't answered my question?" Silence. The judge continued. "I've heard enough. The restraining order is granted. 1 year, renewable. 500 feet from Mrs. Thompson's property and person. No contact, direct or indirect. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of perjury charges." Jessica stood up, baby in arms. "This is insane. She's the abuser. She threw us out. She exercised her property rights after you assaulted her. Which brings me to the assault charge. Mrs. Thompson, you have medical documentation?" Robert handed over the hospital records. The judge reviewed them, then looked at Jessica. "You pushed your mother-in-law hard enough to cause injury, then evicted her from her grandson's life, then filed false complaints when she legally removed you from her property. And you wonder why this court finds in her favor?" "Your Honor," Amanda tried, "we're done here. Restraining order granted. All claims against Mrs. Thompson dismissed with prejudice. Court adjourned." The gavel fell. Jessica screamed. Daniel sat frozen. Their supporters scattered like roaches when lights turn on. I stood, collected my papers, and walked out without looking back. Outside the courthouse, Robert shook my hand. "Congratulations, Margaret. You won. Completely." "No," I said quietly. "I survived. There's a difference." But as I drove home to my empty, peaceful house, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Victory. 2 weeks after the hearing, I received a letter, hand-delivered, from Daniel. The envelope sat on my kitchen table for an hour before I opened it. Part of me didn't want to know what it said, didn't want to risk the peace I had finally found, but I opened it anyway. "Mom, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know the restraining order means I shouldn't be writing this. But I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to come back. I'm just asking you to know the truth. You were right. About everything. Jessica has been controlling me for years. I saw it but didn't want to admit it. Didn't want to believe I had become that weak. That lost. The courtroom, hearing that recording, seeing her lies exposed, it broke something in me. Or maybe it fixed something. I've moved out. Left her. I'm staying with a friend, trying to figure out who I am without her telling me. The baby, your grandson, his name is Michael, after your father. I never told you because Jessica didn't want to, said it was too old-fashioned, but I named him anyway. It's the one thing I stood up for. I don't expect you to care. Don't expect you to want a relationship after everything. But I wanted you to know that you were right to push back, right to demand respect, right to choose yourself. I'm sorry it took losing you to learn that lesson. I'm sorry for everything. Love, Daniel. I read it 3 times, felt tears running down my face. Not tears of joy or reconciliation, tears of grief for what was lost, for who we both could have been if he had found this courage 6 years ago. I didn't respond, couldn't respond without violating my own boundaries. But I kept the letter. The next day Rachel called. "Mrs. Thompson, I thought you should know. Jessica's been cut off." Mom and Dad finally saw through her act. They're supporting Daniel now, helping him with the baby, and Jessica, she's alone. Exactly what she tried to do to you. How is she surviving? Barely. She's back in their condo, but they're making her pay rent, get a job, take responsibility. Everything she avoided for years, it's destroying her. I felt no satisfaction in hearing it, no triumph, just a hollow acknowledgement that actions have consequences. Thank you for telling me, Rachel. There's something else. The baby. Michael. Daniel brings him to visit our parents. He's beautiful, Mrs. Thompson. He has your eyes, your smile. I thought you'd want to know. My throat tightened. Thank you. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and thought about Michael, my grandson, growing up without knowing me, without knowing the grandmother who had protected herself instead of accepting abuse. Was it worth it? The peace, the boundaries, the self-respect? Yes, 1,000 times yes. Because the alternative was teaching him that love means accepting mistreatment, that family means sacrificing your dignity, that grandmothers exist to be used and discarded. Better he never know me than learn those lessons. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out my mother's quilts from storage, the ones Jessica had demanded I remove. I spread them across my bed, my couch, my chairs. I filled my house with memories of real love, the kind that gives without diminishing itself, the kind that supports without enabling, the kind that teaches strength, not weakness. My mother would have been proud of what I did, proud that I finally stood up for myself, and that was enough. 3 months after the hearing, I was having coffee on my porch when a car pulled up. Daniel got out, alone, holding a baby carrier. He stayed at the property line, 500 feet, exactly as the restraining order specified. Mom, I'm not here to violate the order. I'm not asking to come in. I wanted you to see him, Michael, your grandson, from a distance, if that's all you'll allow. I should have gone inside, should have called the police, should have maintained the boundaries that had saved me. Instead, I walked to the edge of my property, not crossing, not breaking my own rules, but close enough to see. Daniel lifted Michael from the carrier, 3 months old now, chubby cheeks, bright eyes, and yes, my father's eyes, my smile. I'm in therapy, Daniel said quietly, learning about codependency, about how I let Jessica control everything, about how I betrayed you. The therapist says I was trying to keep the peace at any cost, that I sacrificed you to avoid conflict with her. And now? Now I'm learning that peace without integrity is just cowardice. You taught me that, by standing up to us, by refusing to accept being treated like nothing. Michael made a small sound, reached his tiny hand toward me, 40 feet away. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Daniel continued. I'm not asking to move back or for money or for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be the man you raised me to be, the one I forgot how to be. What about Jessica? Divorced. Well, in process. She's fighting for custody, but her behavior in court didn't help her case. The judge ordered supervised visitation only. She's claiming I turned our family against her, that she's the victim. She'll never change. I know, but I can. I am. He paused. Michael will grow up knowing about you, knowing that his grandmother was strong enough to demand respect, that she chose herself when everyone told her to keep sacrificing. I want him to learn that lesson, even if he learns it from a distance. My heart was breaking and healing at the same time, breaking for the relationship we lost, healing from the respect finally given. The restraining order has 10 months left, I said carefully. I know, I'll respect it, all of it. But when it expires, if you're willing, maybe we could try again, slowly, on your terms, with boundaries and respect and everything we should have had from the beginning. Maybe, I said. It was all I could offer. all I was ready for. Daniel nodded, buckled Michael back into the carrier. Thank you for letting me show him to you, for not calling the police, for everything you tried to teach me. I'm sorry it took losing you to learn it. He drove away. I stood at my property line and cried. Not from weakness, from the pure, painful acknowledgement that love sometimes means letting go, that boundaries sometimes mean distance, that protection sometimes looks like loss. But as I walked back to my house, my peaceful, dignified, respected house, I knew I had made the right choice, even if it hurt, especially because it hurt. Because real love, real family, real relationships, they're built on respect first. Everything else is just pretending, and I was done pretending. 6 months later, I received an invitation to Michael's first birthday party, hand-delivered by Rachel, not Daniel. He wanted to invite you personally, but the restraining order expires next week, and he didn't want to risk violating it at the last minute, Rachel explained. The party is at my parents' house, neutral territory. You don't have to come, no pressure, but he wanted you to know you're welcome. I held the invitation. Simple, elegant. Michael's first birthday. We hope you can join us. How is Daniel doing? I asked. Good, really good. He's been in therapy, has his own apartment, a steady job, shared custody of Michael. He's becoming the person he should have been all along. And Jessica? Still fighting everything, still playing victim, but she's losing. The courts see through it. Everyone sees through it. She's exactly where her choices led her, alone. I studied the invitation. A year ago, I would have jumped at this chance, would have ignored every red flag, every boundary, just to be included. Now, I was different. Tell Daniel I'll think about it. The week before the party, I did think about it, carefully, weighing what I wanted against what I needed, what forgiveness meant against what self-protection required. I called Robert Henderson. The restraining order expires in 3 days. I need your advice. About what? Daniel wants a relationship. Slowly, with boundaries. Part of me wants that too, but part of me is terrified of falling back into old patterns. Robert was quiet for a moment. Margaret, you're not the same person you were a year ago. You've proven you can set boundaries, enforce them, walk away when necessary. Those skills don't disappear just because you give someone a second chance. But what if he reverts? What if Jessica manipulates him again? What if it all falls apart? Robert finished for me. Then you'll handle it, just like you did before, but stronger now, wiser, with a proven track record of protecting yourself. So you think I should go to the party? I think you should do whatever feels right, not what feels safe, not what feels expected, what feels right. You've earned that. On Michael's birthday, I stood outside Rachel's parents' house for 10 minutes before going in. Through the window, I could see balloons, decorations, family gathered around a high chair where Michael sat, cake-covered and happy. Daniel was there, without Jessica. He looked different, lighter somehow, free. I took a breath and walked in. The room went quiet. Everyone stared, waiting to see what would happen. Daniel approached slowly, carefully. Mom, you came. I did. Thank you. For giving me another chance. This isn't about chances, Daniel. This is about choices. You're making better ones. So am I. We'll see where that leads. He nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. No promises, no guarantees. Just two people trying to rebuild something from honest foundations. Michael saw me and smiled, reached out his cake-covered hands, and something in my chest cracked open. Not breaking, but blooming. I stepped forward, took his small hand in mine, let him smear frosting on my fingers. Hi, Michael, I whispered. I'm your grandmother. And for the first time in a year, that felt like truth instead of pain. The party was careful, polite, everyone walking on eggshells around me. But it was a start. As I left, Daniel walked me to my car. I know this doesn't fix anything, he said. I know I have years of proving myself ahead. But Mom, thank you for not giving up completely, for being willing to try. I'm not doing this for you, Daniel. I'm doing it for me, because I want to know my grandson, because I believe in second chances when they're earned. But make no mistake, one boundary crossed, one hint of the old patterns, and I'm gone, for good this time. I understand, and I won't let you down. Not again. I drove home to my quiet house, my sanctuary, my fortress, but this time the quiet felt different. Not empty, just peaceful. And the fortress had a door that could open, if, and only if, it was treated with respect. 1 year after the eviction, I sat in my living room, fully restored now, every trace of Jessica's influence erased, every corner reclaimed as mine, and thought about the journey that had brought me here. The restraining order had expired. Daniel and I had been rebuilding our relationship slowly, carefully, with boundaries so clear they could be seen from space. We met once a week, always in public places, always with time limits established beforehand. He brought Michael. We talked. We learned each other again. But this time, it was different. This time, he listened when I spoke, respected my time, appreciated my presence instead of expecting it. And the moment I felt even a hint of the old patterns returning, I said so, immediately, without apology, and he corrected course, every single time. Jessica had tried to interfere, of course. Angry messages through mutual acquaintances, attempts to paint me as the villain who destroyed her family, social media posts claiming grandparent alienation. But the truth was already public, documented, undeniable, and people had learned to see through her manipulation. She was facing the consequences of her choices, alone, exactly as I had once feared I would be. The difference was, I had chosen my solitude as protection. She had earned hers through betrayal. My phone rang. It was Helen, my sister. "Margaret, I've been thinking. You should write a book about this, about what you went through, about how you survived it." I laughed. "Who would want to read about an old woman standing up for herself? You'd be surprised. I've told your story to friends, other women our age. You know what they all say? I wish I had her courage. There are thousands of people out there being used by their families, being told that love means accepting abuse. They need to know it's okay to say no." I considered it, the idea of taking my private pain and making it public testimony, of transforming my experience into something that could help others. Maybe, I said, maybe someday. But I knew I wouldn't, because my story wasn't finished yet. It was still being written, one careful boundary at a time. That afternoon, Daniel arrived for our weekly visit, but this time he had something in his hand, an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a check for $2,800, 1 month's rent at fair market value. "Daniel, we've talked about this. I don't want—" "It's not charity. It's not guilt. It's math," he said firmly. "I lived in your house rent-free for 6 years. That's 72 months. At $2,800 per month, I owe you $200,160. This is month 1 of 72. I'll pay you back, all of it. It'll take 6 years, but I'll do it. You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Not because you're demanding it, because I'm choosing it. Because that's what taking responsibility looks like. Because that's what respect looks like. And because I want Michael to see me doing the right thing, even when it's hard." I looked at my son, really looked at him. He had grown, changed, become the man I had always hoped he would be. It had taken loss and consequences and hard lessons, but he had found his way. "Keep your money," I said softly. "Invest it in Michael's future, in your own stability. The debt isn't financial, Daniel. It's moral, and you're paying that back every single week by showing up, respecting my boundaries, and being the father and son you should have been all along." His eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but I deserve peace. And holding on to resentment isn't peaceful, so I'm choosing to let it go. Not for you, for me. Because that's what the woman I've become does. She chooses what serves her well-being, not what punishes others." We sat in silence for a moment. Michael played on the floor between us, building towers with blocks and knocking them down with delighted laughter. "He's beautiful," I said. "He is, and he knows about you. I show him photos, tell him stories. When he's old enough to understand, I'll tell him everything. The truth, about how I failed you, about how you stood up for yourself, about how love without respect isn't love at all. That's a heavy lesson for a child. It's a necessary one. I don't want him to make my mistakes. I want him to grow up knowing that boundaries are healthy, that self-respect is essential, that the people who truly love you will prove it through actions, not just words. I reached down and picked up Michael, held him in my arms for the first time without fear, without conditions, without the shadow of betrayal hanging over us. He looked at me with those bright eyes, my father's eyes, and smiled. "Gamma," he said, his first attempt at grandma. My heart cracked open completely, not breaking, blooming into something new, something earned, something real. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm your Gamma, and I'm here, on my terms, with my boundaries, but I'm here." Over the following months, our relationship continued to grow, slowly, carefully, with mutual respect as the foundation instead of obligation or guilt. I learned that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, that reconciliation didn't mean returning to old dynamics, that loving someone didn't require sacrificing yourself. I learned that the strongest love is the one that includes self-love, that the healthiest families are the ones built on mutual respect, not one-sided devotion. That saying no is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. And I learned that I was stronger than I ever imagined, that I could survive loss, could enforce boundaries, could choose myself without being selfish. The house that had once felt like a prison became my sanctuary again. The rooms that had echoed with disrespect now filled with dignity and peace. The life that had been consumed by others' needs became beautifully, powerfully my own. I was 59 years old when I finally learned who I was. Not someone's mother, not someone's landlord, not someone's doormat, just Margaret, a woman who knew her worth, who demanded respect, who chose peace over people-pleasing. A woman who had been pushed one time too many and discovered she could push back. And the most beautiful part? I didn't regret a single boundary I had set. Not the eviction, not the restraining order, not the year of separation. Because each one had been necessary. Each one had taught me, what real love actually looks like. It looks like respect, like boundaries, like mutual care that doesn't diminish anyone. It looks like a grandmother holding her grandson and knowing she earned this moment by refusing to accept less than she deserved. It looks like peace. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset over my garden, Daniel joined me. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after surviving storms together. "Mom," he said finally, "I never thanked you." "For what?" "For being strong enough to push back, for loving me enough to let me face consequences, for teaching me, even though I fought the lesson every step of the way, that real love includes respect. You saved me by refusing to save me. Does that make sense?" It did. Perfect sense. "You're welcome," I said simply. We sat together as darkness fell, and I realized something profound. I had won, not because I had destroyed them or gotten revenge, not because they had suffered or apologized. I had won because I had reclaimed myself, because I had learned that the most important relationship I would ever have was the one with myself. And that relationship required the same boundaries, the same respect, the same care that I now demanded from others. I was whole again, not despite what had happened, but because of it. And that wholeness, that hard-won, battle-tested, absolutely earned sense of self was worth every painful step of the journey. I was Margaret Ann Thompson, survivor, boundary setter, grandmother, and most importantly, a woman who finally knew her worth. And nobody, not my son, not his wife, not anyone, would ever make me forget that again. The end of this chapter was just the beginning of the rest of my life. And it was going to be lived on my terms, completely, unapologetically, beautifully on my terms.